más incentivos para buscar o ir a Dubái a ofrecer sus productos o ir a ver qué trae de Dubái o atraer inversiones, ¿no?
The Global Business Forum is a platform where we are trying to connect businesses together from both regions. This will be our third attempt or third version of this Global Business Forum Latin America, and it will be our first time to go outside Dubai. It's a new experience for us, but we believe if we are there, we'll be able also to connect with a bigger group and bigger business community, not only in Panama and Central America, but also South America.
And the important thing is that we are matching entrepreneurs, companies with companies and entrepreneurs in Dubai and the other countries in the region. So this is a huge opportunity. I hope we can strengthen this in Panama with the next summit. We are taking a delegation of entrepreneurs next April, and we hope that many of the business that we have started talking and everything, we can have some concretion and we start doing all this business that we hope for.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back from lunch. I left you before lunch. I'm joining you again after. Again, I'm Kate Ambrose, the president of LAFCA, the Association for Private Capital Investment in Latin America. And I'm here to lead a discussion on Colombia. Colombia elected a new president last year, Ivan Duque, and it's a moment in which the country is thinking about new opportunities, bringing in new investors and new markets globally. Just worth mentioning before we go into this discussion that Colombia actually has a very diversified economy already. It's a dynamic exporter, not only across agribusiness and coffee and some of the products that are well-known, flowers, but also has a very dynamic tech sector. In fact, I'm just going to give a shout out for one of the unicorns, the billion-dollar valuations we've had out of Latin America, Rappi. Many of you will know, so it's been a tremendous success story, and we see a lot of success coming out of Colombia in recent years. On this discussion today, we're going to hear about a particular success story in the case of agribusiness. And we have here to talk with us Rodolfo Ahumada, who's the commercial director of Pacific Fruits, a phenomenal story of global success. And Rodolfo, I'm going to hand it right over you to talk about how you have built a global export platform around avocado from Colombia.
Well, thank you very much. Thank everybody for the invitation to the Dubai Chamber of Commerce, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the government of Panama. Well, Colombia is on this moment in a change where it's developing several sectors. One of the most important sectors that is growing is the agriculture. Why? Because after the conflict that we have for several years, now the opportunities and the people is getting back to the farms, to the fields, and there are several products that are growing. In this case, our company is on the avocado has grower, packer and exporter, and we have found that this product have become one of the most important products in Colombia. This is because, first of all, the government is working together with the private sector to make policies and make dynamic the efforts to bring the products to the international markets. Our company have been working with the Minister of Commerce, Minister of Agriculture, and the entities to develop new markets. Colombia has been focused since 2011 till 2017 in coffee, bananas, flowers that represent 80% of the exports. Now that 20% are products like avocados, and the destinations are relatively known as Europe, but we are in development of new markets such as the Middle East. We have opened markets like Dubai, being exporting directly from Colombia to Dubai. And it's really nice because on Dubai we have found good partnerships, a good logistic opportunities, and we don't see the market of Dubai as 9 million people. We see an about 100 million people that belongs to the Middle East countries. Part of the avocado have arrived to Kuwait, part of the avocado have arrived to Saudi Arabia, and everything has been worked through Dubai. So we see a good partnership and a good development in these countries. Besides that, the government mission on the sanitary diplomacy is to keep the market, increase the commerce and invest, and open new market. And this that we as agriculture business are taking advantage with the support of the government.
Great. Can you tell anything about how the internal capacity that you've had for building that business in terms of human capital and the resources that you found within Colombia? How have you managed to compete globally from the base that you have in Colombia?
Well, in this moment, we are part growers of the production that we are selling. We are just a grower of 30% of the total sales belongs to our own company. The other part is from the third-party growers. And the government is supporting with some entities like Finagro, like it's an entity that makes financial support to the small and medium growers. Besides that, we found that the entities for the commerce is giving support to opening market, to reduce, eliminate, and automate formalities for the commerce. And we have, on this moment, a growing of invest in Colombia for roads, for ports, that the products can arrive faster to several markets. For example, thinking in exporting to the Middle East a couple of years ago was impossible, fresh fruits we are talking. And right now we have good logistic opportunities with 22, 23, 25 days of transit, and it's easily and it's really fast. So to compete with international players like Mexico, Peru, Chile, that are also growers of agricultural products, Colombia is in a good strategic position to arrive at any place or any destination in the world with the best quality.
Great. Last question. One of the things that I've heard from our investor member firms is that the peace agreement, the historic peace agreement that was signed by President Santos before President Duque, represented an extraordinary opportunity for agribusiness if this enormous section of Colombia would become open for agricultural development. Where do you see the opportunities and the challenges there?
On this moment, Colombia, the Minister of Agriculture have created a policy that names sanitary diplomacy, where they are working in an offensive way, opening markets, and in a defensive way, keeping and increasing the market. We have more or less 16 trade agreements around the world where we can arrive with no taxes, but there are also phytosanitary barriers that make a little bit slow the commerce. The agriculture have in Colombia 22 million hectares for growing agriculture and around 50 million hectares for cattle and 48 million hectares for forestry. So there is a lot of products that the government is focused on export non-traditional or oil or energetic export, just new products. These new products can be fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and agro-industrial products like oil, avocado oil, for example, palm oil, for example, candies, can be also guacamole. And the development is on the agriculture because there are also the conditions that all entities for I think for the last 5 or 8 years, it's the first time that the Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Social Protection, entities like the Colombian Agriculture Institute, entities like ProColombia, like Colombia Productiva, are working together with a final mission: increase non-traditional, non-oil or energetic exports, develop what we have. The Ministry of Paraguay, Mr. Castellano, and the Ministry of Ecuador said, we are good in producing food, And in a way to say Colombia, with countries like Brazil, Argentina, Bolivia, are going to be one of the biggest food suppliers in the world. We have the conditions, we have the land, we have 50 million people, and now people is back to the fields, to the rural world. And so we are going to have workers on that, and beside that, we have one of the most important resources, that is the water. Colombia have more or less 3,000 millimeters of annual precipitation of water, is 6-7 times the normal for countries like Spain, Israel, United States, and 2-3 times more than Latin America. We have the place with more rains in the world, that is the Choco jungle, is 15,000 millimeters per year. So we have rivers, lakes, we have mountains, we have everything for the agriculture development.
Great, thank you so much, Rodolfo. So now we're going to hear from Camilo Fernández de Soto, who is the president of Colombia Productiva, recently renamed and relaunched a government initiative to work with the private sector on building global markets for Colombian products. So if you can tell a little bit about, you know, the tactical role that the organization has played, for example, in the case of Rodolfo's avocado business, and then other types of, you know, enterprises that you've supported.
Thank you, Kate, and I also want to start by thanking the Dubai Chamber and the Inter-American Development Bank for the invitation. Very excited to be here and sharing what Colombia is doing to attract investment and promote our exports. In fact, I want to start by mentioning that in general terms, Colombia is the 32nd economy in the world, the 4th in Latin America. And we have had a very stable macroeconomic stability in the past 4 years, with a range of between 2 and 4% in inflation. And the government has understood that we have done a good job in maintaining those factors. But the homework that we have is right now working with the companies. 2/3 of productivity increases in Colombia are the homework of companies. This means that, in fact, we have a challenge in infrastructure, roads, and everything, but the biggest challenge right now for the private sector is within the companies. That's where Colombia Productiva goes and works with the companies. We're launching a program to work with 1,000 companies a year to increase their productivity by 8%. And also we're helping companies with their export challenges. So as we were working with Rodolfo, what we're doing is we're figuring out what are the missing steps in order for us to increase our exports. The president gave the Ministry of Trade a very specific task. We have to increase our exports from 21 billion to 27 billion in 4 years. So we have a very challenging task, and what we're doing is that we work with companies such as Rodolfo's, and we're mapping what are those specific challenges that he has. In his case, was exporting to the United States. The United States has a 2.5 billion market in avocado has. And right now, Colombia is only exporting $51 million globally. So this presents an amazing opportunity for the Colombian agribusiness sector, particularly for the avocado has companies such as Rodolfo's. Avocado has been growing at 132% year by year, so it's a tremendous opportunity. 5 years ago, we were only exporting about $6 million. So we're working specifically with companies such as Rodolfo's to target those phytosanitary challenges and duties that the United States, for example, imposes in order for them to increase their exports to the United States.
That's a great example. Can you give any other examples of sectors that you're working with and the type of bottlenecks or challenges that you see? And one of the things we were talking about right before the panel is that sometimes, you know, Colombia has amazing companies, but sometimes it's difficult for business owners of SMEs or even larger companies to have the tools that they need to be able to access either other Latin American markets or global markets. So what are some other specific examples or bottlenecks you see?
So the first thing to mention is that the president was very eager in putting the government to help the private sector. he launched a program that in Spanish makes a much nicer rhythm, that it's Estado Simple Colombia Ágil, which basically helps to improve our legislation or to eliminate, simplify, or modify regulation. So far, since the last year, the 7th of August, we have intervened 1,493 procedures in order to make them more business friendly. And the target for this government is to work with around 3,100 in the 4 years. So the first thing that we're doing is that we're modifying the regulation in order to make it more business friendly. The second thing is that last year we passed a fiscal reform in order to decrease income tax and provide many mechanisms for the private sector. So for example, we have now an initiative for mega investments. Mega investments are those investments that are more than $343 million, and they're gonna have a red carpet strategy. So once they arrive to the country, they can have a very lean procedure, so their investments are very much easy to do. And in terms of opportunities, I can tell you figures because I know here we have very exciting investors, but we have, for example, in road infrastructure, we have $17 billion in projects. In airports, we have projects for about $5.6 billion for 31 airports. We have also projects in the railways and networks for around $3.3 billion. And what we do at Colombia Productiva is that we can actually help those companies, those investors that go and do the work, and we can help them with the companies that they need to work so they can become more productive and the whole value chain becomes more competitive. So that's part of our work.
That's great. I can say I know that, for example, Canadian pension plans such as CDPQ have made hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in the infrastructure sector in Colombia, so we're really interested in that opportunity. Rodolfo, any requests that you would have from this new administration, or I'll open up to both of you just to end on this question. What would be your hope and expectation for the administration of President Duque to achieve over the next 4 years in facilitating opportunities for businesses to scale both in Colombia and globally?
Well, at the moment, the government, as we have mentioned, have focused increase the non-oil or energetic exports that could generate aggregate value. That is one of the most important things. Including that, we see the agriculture sector, because the agriculture is one of the things that we have as country being blessed with a good position, with a great conditions, with the soil, and the idea is that the country can become one of the biggest food producer, manufacturers, because the idea is also in some cases, for example, that we are just far away from several countries. For example, the pineapple. The pineapple have grown in Colombia 150% in 5-6 years, but the pineapple is not suitable to arrive with the nice taste, with the nice sweet to Asian market. So in that case, we can also offer to the customers, to the markets, processed food that could generate aggregate value in the country. We can also take advantage of the agriculture, and then we can also increase the export. And the policy and economic, the government must follow that all the institutes are working with the private sector, because the private sector can be more dynamic if the government is involved in all the things. For example, the infrastructure projects, we're in a city, the name is Cali, and we have the biggest port 150 kilometers away. 4 or 5 years ago, 6 years ago, it took around 6 hours to arrive to Buenaventura port. Right now, with the new road that we have 2 lines going, 2 lines coming, it's just 3 hours and a half. So we are improving, and that is costing us reducing of freights, having a faster logistic, and that kind of infrastructure in the 7,000 kilometers of new roads, the River Magdalena navigation, the rails. For example, I use the rails sometimes, but that is costing me 50% of the transport by truck. Besides that, we are giving a good environmental care of the communities, because with one train I can departure 30, 40 containers, so there's going to be less smoke, there's going to be not a headache on the roads. So there is a lot of things that we depend on the government to keep improving and create opportunity for investors. And the idea is that the investors feels happy, comfortable. Colombia is a country that is right now on the Organization for Economic for Cooperation and Economic Development. So the investor will see that Colombia policy is transparency and must follow the rules to be fast and simple, to make business and to be sure about their invest.
Great. Well, I don't know. I think that was pretty well said. Anything to add, Camilo?
Yeah, President Duque wouldn't be happy if I don't mention one of the main policies of his government, which is the promotion of the orange economy. Maybe Colombia is known for its coffee or by its coal, but the figures tell a different story. For example, right now the orange economy represents 3 times what coffee gives to GDP, or it's 1.5 times what mining gives to the GDP of Colombia. What he wants to do with the orange economy, that right now represents about 3.6% of GDP, is to bring it to 7%. For that matter, what we're doing is that we're launching a pilot project with the Inter-American Development Bank, where we're going to be helping the services sector to consolidate companies in the digital animation, video games, software, BPO. And we want to bring those companies everywhere. Especially, we want to help the companies that are going to be circling around Medellin. Medellin, we're going to be launching with President Duque the 30th of April, the 4th Industrial Revolution Center, the World Economic Forum 4th Industrial Revolution Center in Medellin this month is the only center in Latin America that the World Economic Forum has, and we're very happy that we're launching that this year, and that we're going to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurs around the orange economy, so we can increase our economy and help all our entrepreneurs.
Great. Yeah, fantastic engineers in Colombia. And as I mentioned before, I made a mission trip to Medellin back in 2013 with investors from Silicon Valley. It's an extraordinary opportunity. Well, thank you so much to both of you, and thank you to all of you for listening.
Thank you.